And one, two, three. All right, welcome back. This is the Black Male Survival Guide. Our mission is to educate and uplift black men in our local area, particularly North Charleston, South Carolina, and educate black men, particularly young black men. Mr. Unseen, could you please mute up for me while I'm giving my soliloquy? No, you're good. I just want to get that echo out of there. But our goal is to educate black men, particularly young black men, about the realities of black life in modern times, and to dispel a lot of the delusions that we have as black people, a lot of the lies that are being told, not just about us, but within our own community. We want to educate young black men and black men in general about what's really going on so we can make better decisions. Because right now we're plagued by delusions about whether it's religious delusions, whether it's moral delusions, whether it's economic delusions, whether it's us trying to live vicariously through celebrities or athletes. Black people aren't doing well, and it's looking more and more like it's not going to get better for us. So I think black men and black boys need to understand what's truly going on so they can make better decisions about how they want to move, whether it's choosing the right mate, whether it's leaving the country altogether, whether it's going to college, whether it's not going to college, whether it's starting a business. Understand what's really going on so that, one, if you stay in this country, you can properly plan. And if you leave, you can properly plan. And before we get into the main topic today, we're going to have Mr. Unseen sort of break down some strategy for us, black men in particular, black men and boys in particular. He's going to break that down and kind of give us a basic framework of how you should probably plan out your life, and if you're a community activist, how you should plan out your activism and what it is you're trying to achieve. So with that, I'm going to mute up and hand it over to Mr. Unseen. Just tell me, Mr. Unseen, when you want me to bring a particular document up or anything.
Go ahead and bring up that first document that has the three squares, and it just says mission, assignment, strategic planning, and tactical implementation.
Okay. Now, can you guys see that?
And then I'm going to go back and see if I can see it. Perfect. I can see it.
Okay.
All right. The first thing is the mission. Every time we have an argument, every time we have a disagreement, or we do agree with something, we all have a different mission, and sometimes what we might say is the mission. It might be some individual mission we have, and they don't match what the other person or the other group has in mind, right? Usually they give you a strategy. Somebody might come to you and say, okay, because you're black, you should do this. I hate to use the example, but vote a particular in a manner, right? What's the mission, right? You have a group mission and an individual mission. If you ask the person, what's the mission? And if the mission is something that you don't believe that can be checked with a percentage, then it's probably going to fall apart. If it's something that's feasible, then you might be able to do it, but we always have to take it back to the mission. So when we start having a lot of long, drawn-out debates, I'm going to say, well, what's the mission of doing that? If you say we should do this, I'm going to say, well, what's the mission? And if you don't have that in your plan as an individual, then that information is going to become useless to you at that point. Now, if you decide to participate in a group, and the mission is a group mission, and the individual sees that they can actually get something out of participating as a group, then that mission is going to coincide with that individual's plans or what they need to survive. We can't ask anybody to do any type of group behavior at the sacrifice of themselves, especially when we look at our community, because we're disrupted like that. My personal family can ask sacrifice of me, but just a common person I pass on the street. They can't ask that of me, and I can't ask it of them just because of color. because we don't know what the other person's mission is. That person at some point would be to help me, and at one point that person's mission might be to rob me. Until we have a common culture and a common mission as a people, the group talks and what we might want to do as a group is going to get weak. And I'm going to keep it real short. Well, once we know a mission, then we can check our strategies, and then it gets down to your tactics. What do you actually do? So, if your mission is to get a particular political candidate in office, then you want to plan and make a strategy around that. And, some of your tactics might be going out and asking people to vote, voting yourself, putting up flyers, getting an ad on the radio. Right. Now, bring up the next slide, Brian. I actually put up an example. It should have a mission, a strategy, and some tactics. And I think it's a little wider than that. There we go. Oh, but it's so small. What's the mission? And we'll keep it short, and then I'll let you guys go. We're going to be comparing this to every point we talk about, no matter what leader may have said, what political demand somebody might be telling us to do. You got to vote or whatever. We have to ask, what's the individual mission that a person may have, and what group mission does a person have? And if the group's mission doesn't satisfy the needs of the individual, if we're just pushing resources from one side of the community to the other, and there's not a plus for all of us, then we're gonna, it's just one side loses while the other side goes up. But the people, it's not going to make us survive any longer, right? We have to understand that. If somebody says, we'll take all your money out your bank account and give it to me because my skin is brown, and then that other person starves to death so I can live, and then my family gets something, that person lost. I lost that person.
Can I interrupt?
Please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think it's important when you lay out a plan like this, or your strategic planning like this. Like, once you start laying out the steps, if people don't want to follow the steps, you have no group. Exactly. You have no group.
And I'll mute up.
So if you don't have a group, right, if you don't have people who are willing to follow the steps, then it's left to that individual to do the best for he or herself. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where the black community, ADOS, FBA community finds itself right now. There's a certain push for reparations. There are certain steps you have to take to get reparations, and it's not all going to be pretty steps. If you don't take those steps, you're not going to get freaking reparations. If you don't get freaking reparations, you're going to perish in this country. Like we said before, let me pull it up real quick. Boomers was 120 trillion. Was it trillion inheritance? I'm trying to spell it wrong. Let's see. Here we go. The Great Wealth Transfer isn't 72 trillion, but 129 trillion. So it's doubled since the last time I read an article about it. And most of this is going to be from white baby boomers to white millennials and white Gen Z. That's what black men are competing with. That's what we're competing with. And if you take this another article, Black Wealth Zero by 2053, right? Where is it at? The Guardian. This is the one I usually read. Median wealth of black Americans will fall to zero by 2053, warns new report. We don't have time for religious delusions. We don't have time for economic delusions. What I mean by economic delusions is, okay, one person that did well in this area over here, but the rest of your freaking community, is making 30 grand a year or less or nothing or homeless or whatever. We don't have time to vicariously live through one or two people who are doing well. Look at the macro scale. If white people are about to inherit 120, they say it's the greatest wealth transfer in history. In history. And you're about to have jack shit. We don't have time arguments. We don't have time for arguments about Jesus dying on the fucking cross. We don't have time for arguments about Muhammad going up into heaven in some goddamn carriage with some goddamn horses. We don't have time for arguments for fucking Beyonce and what's his name, Jay-Z, and their billionaires and what they're going to do and if they're going to be at the Super Bowl halftime show. We don't have time for fucking sports. If you're going to stay in this place, reparations is the only thing that's going to make your life somewhat manageable in the future. If you're not on that, just give it up. Just say there's no more black community. Fucking perish. And let black men and do what they're going to do. If they want to leave, they can fucking leave. If they want to stay and date whomever they want to date, let them do that. And leave them fucking alone. If you're not going to get on reparations to try to salvage what's left of the black community, what I mean by the black community, I'm talking about the positive parts, not the ratchet parts. Then leave them alone. Leave them alone. I'm sorry, I just wanted to point that out. If people aren't going to get on board, they don't want to hear no crap about Donald Trump and he's racist and if the Republicans get in office, all that stuff. You're gonna perish anyway. $120 trillion. That's what your competition is. You see, if you go downtown Charleston right now, you see it. In parts of down Charleston, where it's majority black, you got all these nice condos and everything. I said that. Was majority black. You got all these nice condos and everything. Yeah, if you're not going to follow the steps, and ADOS and FBA laid out the goddamn steps, we have to stop voting for Democrats. We gotta have to have a political boycott. We have to change the very nature of black politics in this society. If we don't, we're done. It's finished. It's over. But I'm sorry, Mr. Unseen. Please continue. I will mute up.
And that was a good point. And we're gonna have to. We wanted to reference at the end, but we was gonna talk about H. Rap Brown and the way he explains. And that brings us to the next point. What game are you playing? Are you playing a finite game or are you playing an infinite game? That's the mistake they made in the civil rights. You thought you was gonna, once you got the one such and such and we got our vote and they cheered and they thought it was over, and then the next player made their move. Politics is a game that goes on forever. No nation will last forever on this earth. No person will last. No group of people will. The game is to play it as long as you can. You know, if you look at some of the countries that's been in, some of the companies that's been in this country, some of them have been, here for more than 100 years. They didn't beat every company every year, but they outlasted many of them, and that's the game. They're still alive. So if you have to play as a team player, you play to win the long game, certain rules have to go, and you have to understand there's a game. If you say you're going to do this, you understand that somebody else is going to do something back to counter that. So you need to have X amount of moves ahead. But if you say I'm gonna vote this particular party and then go home and eat potato chips and watch the Super Bowl or whatever, and that's all the action that you put into your voting, and that's as in depth as your politics goes. Even the idea that you're voting, we're gonna play the video. Your politics comes from your needs, not who you vote for. Your politics comes from your need. If you don't have money, then your politics should be all about you getting money, not what's going on somewhere else outside of you. Not what's going on in some other neighborhood. It starts with your neighborhood, wherever you're at first. You have to put your flag down where you're at and say, this is where my politics starts locally, because your children have to eat. I can put money towards somebody else's boys' school and watch my nephew starve. That's not a win for my family, right? What we want to do is put our flags down, and if we get some abundance, we share it. But if we're starving over here on this side, then we have to lock arms with the people around us. Good people need to start moving closer to each other. And if you have that ratchet stuff going on, y'all need to go to Ratchetville. And I'm going to mute my mic.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Unseen. I'm going to get. Thank you. I'm going to get into the main topic of what we're going to be talking about today, and the main topic is the second part of the first show we did, which is asking a question: Are African Americans being genocided in this country? And in that first show, we pretty much all agreed that yes, we are, and we laid out why. We laid out some of the reasons, some of the policy decisions that were made that kind of proves it. We showed intent. It lines up with the United Nations definition. We laid out all that. Today, I want to go into it a little deeper, but we're going to do it through the lens of a psychologist named Dr. Bobby E. Wright. And if you don't know who Dr. Bobby E. Wright is, he was a psychologist, I think, out of Chicago. And he was one of the teachers of the late Fred Hampton, one of the youngest Black Panther members, one of the probably I wouldn't say he's the most influential, but me personally, I vibed a lot with his energy because he just seemed like the younger man at the time, or whatnot. But anyway, he was one of Fred Hampton's influencers, and he has a lot of interesting to say in a lecture he did called Black Mentacide. And it was almost prophetic, some of the things that he was saying, because all you have to do is just analyze people. When you start analyzing people's psychology, you can understand kind of how they're going to move. And he kind of goes on over that in the lecture. Now we're not going to watch the whole lecture. We're going to just pick out 3 parts that I think are interesting. But before we do that, we're going to read a little bit about him. This is the book that he wrote called Psychopathic Racial Personality and Other Essays. You can buy it on Amazon. Fairly cheap. He looks like it's $10.45. And we're just going to read it quickly, his synopsis or his bio. He was born in 1934 in Hobson City, Alabama. He was an American clinical psychologist, scholar, educator, political activist, and humanitarian. He received his education in counseling from Chicago State University and his PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Chicago in 1972. At that point of his untimely death, he was president-elect of the Association of Black Psychologists. During the mid-1960s, he worked as a truant officer in the Chicago public school system and led a successful challenge to racist hiring procedures for Black teachers. His political work has been credited with helping lay foundations that later enabled the election of Chicago's first African-American mayor, Harold Washington, in 1983. 2 of his scholarly works have been described as highly influential by the 2013 National Conference on African/Black Psychology. The Psychopathic Racial Personality, 1974, published in 1984, and other years as one of his series of essays, and Mentacide, The Ultimate Threat to Black Survival, 1979. His work emphasized the need to recognize psychological racial warfare and for Africans to define themselves in their own terms, while analyzing the psychology of white supremacy, not only of its victims, and to develop a durable social theory and associated institutions to change the politics of mental health. With that, we're going to watch the first video, and in this video, he's going to give the definition of Mentacide so that it's clear to our audience and to our guests. Here we go. Now, you guys tell me if you can hear this. I'll rewind it back a little bit.
If you listen to them carefully, we can give them what they want.
Can y'all hear that?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, here we go.
And still control them. The laws, but they will induce blacks to begin to do birth control, become sterilized, by making the consequences money. By saying to black people, if you do this, if you become sterilized at a certain age, we'll give you so much money. We'll give you so much money. Now, don't argue that, because, see, something I think, again, we are led to believe. We have been led to believe, and this is where the Mentacide is those who got it on the wall around here. And when I walk down the hall, don't identify me. Don't say, hey, Bobby, because I want these white folks to know that my name's up on that wall that y'all got around here. Mentacide is defined as the deliberate and systematic destruction of a group's mind with the ultimate aim, the ultimate objective being the extirpation or the extermination of that group. That's Mentacide. This deliberate and systematic destruction of a group's mind with the ultimate objective being the extermination of that group. And so if you begin to look at what Skinner and all of these and I'm talking to you because most of you are psychologists too. This is what psychology really means. Anytime you see things on TV, psychologists have had something to do with it in terms of advertising. Anytime you see those projections on who's going to win an election, the moment that CBS is 6 o'clock.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there, and I just want to let you guys chime in on his definition and how it relates to the genocide of African Americans or ADOS/FBA. Who wants to go first? Does anybody want to chime in on the definition? Can y'all hear me? Huh?
I heard you. Just get my thoughts together.
Okay. I mean, if you guys want, I can just move on to the next video. Okay, I'll move on to the next video. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I've always found about this country, and not just black people, but people in particular, that we love to be, our main motivation is entertainment. It's not so much the definition of entertainment as in something that we enjoy, but everything has to be sensationalized. And what he just hit on towards the end of the video was like, we pay attention to the news and we see this, that, and the third, but it's already predetermined pretty much, and we're fighting a losing battle, or if we're fighting at all. That's what I took from it.
I think ultimately why I wanted to play the definition is because I think a lot of times when people think of genocide, they think, what the Jewish people went through in Nazi Germany, which is a bona fide genocide. I mean, it's about as outright as you can get. But our genocide is more subtle. Many people have referred to it as a slow genocide. We were just talking, me and Mr. Unseen today, we're just talking about how when you look at racism, it's become more codified. It's not outright and open. I mean, some of the Republicans are starting to get a little bit more open now because they're starting to see that their population is starting to go in decline now. So they're going to ramp up the more overt white supremacy and white racism. But for the most part, it's codified. You feel it. You can feel it when you go to work. You feel it when you go to school. You know what I'm saying? And what they've done is they've successfully used the civil rights advancements against us to the point where white women actually benefit more from the benefits from legislation that came from civil rights. And now we're the racists. Now they call us racist. I think Mr. Evdidia was just saying that they were calling John Singletary, the guy who's running for mayor of North Charleston, a reverse racist. Why? Because he dares to mention black people. He dares to say, look at the conditions that we're living in, and you're not being fair with how the resources are being distributed. They're even using Martin Luther King against us now. We got to take that back, and we got to be much more adamant about who we are, where we came from, and why we deserve what we deserve. If not, we're going to perish. If you're sitting in here talking about, I don't want to offend my white friends, so I'm not going to do this or that, then perish. Perish. You're going to die. Your offspring are not going to make it. Not in the long term. So I think it's important that we understand I think it's important that we understand the definition so we can understand what's actually happening to us. It's not an outright genocide. It's a slow genocide. But yeah, go ahead.
I gotta give you a little pushback.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we talked about the mission. If that individual has a mission and their survival is based on some other group, you can't go and say, well, no, you can't say that, such and such and such. You got to come over here with us because we're being genocided. If a small group have a way out, you're going to hold them back because the majority of the group can't make it? Is that what they should do?
No, this is the age old debate over individualism versus collectivism, and also what I would call the wait. Let me finish what I'm saying. The small group are tokens. They're that small percentage that they allow through. So I'm okay with that small percentage saying, hey, we're gonna go off and do our own thing or whatever. That's fine. My thing is this: don't make it like, okay, it's just because all these people over here just couldn't cut it. That's not what happened. It's not what happened.
that I agree with that.
Yeah, that's all I'm
I
saying.
understand.
All I'm saying is, if we're going to say the black community is dead, then go ahead and just say it, and let people make the decisions they're going to make. But don't come to me every election season saying, "Oh, your ancestors died for your right to vote. You better go out and vote because Trump gonna get." I don't want to hear all that bullshit. You're not doing the things necessary on the political side to get the results we need so that we could do better things and make better decisions and have the resources we need to get better outcomes.
And I'd like to say, man, a good way of saying that is don't call us a community if you ain't acting like one.
Yeah.
And I'll mute.
All right. But Mr. Hidden One wanted to say something. Go ahead.
I mean, overall, America's going to have a downfall eventually anyway. I mean, look at the population decline, for one. Even if we were to make it, it's just kind of just happened with all the first world countries. Just all having like a massive population decline, So it's like, even if somehow we magically make it, that's only going to solve us for so long into the future. Like, it's not going to solve everything.
Well,
somehow we got to put our money now.
it's like what Mr. Unseen was saying. He was like, look, the game is continuous. It's continuous. You know what I'm saying? At one time, black people weren't on the bottom of society. You go study the Moors and even certain kingdoms and civilizations in Africa, and they held it for a amount of time, and then they got into disarray or whatever, and they were taken over and whatnot. Same thing with white people. Until the Roman.
Sometimes you have to be the losing side. It's just we lost. That's just might be the reality. I accept that reality. We lost this war, but
look. I hear your point about the demographic decline across the first world. That's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking specifically about black people, but
yeah, we can't go off into. Like, it's important to understand why that's happening. Don't get me wrong, but my thing is this: use that to your advantage. If you know white people are in decline, Europe's in decline. Why would you keep making the same mistakes? You know what I'm saying? And put your people by mimicking them, put your people in decline, like abortion or divorce. We should be doing the opposite. We should be shoring up our numbers. That's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah, we know that's happening. What are you going to do as a result? How are you going to react to that? Right now, we just do the same thing other people do. So I get what you're saying, but all I'm saying is that, yeah, that's happening. How? Just because that's happening doesn't mean that has to be our fate. We're a minority in this group. And because we're a minority, we have certain advantages, believe it or not. A lot of disadvantages too, but we also have certain advantages. We don't have to follow the same mold. I heard, who was it? Who's that guy? That Republican, Sambo? What's his name? Larry Elder? Like, I disagree with most of what he says, but it was something he said that I think is true. He was like, look, when you look at black culture and when you really truly look at it, all it really is poor white people's culture from the South. That's what it is. What I'm saying is, when we're going to rise above that.
But the problem is, a lot of people are kind of satisfied with the way things are. It's kind of sad, but
yeah,
you
I
can't
agree.
really make a satisfied person want to change. If people want to change, the people who have already in distress have lost everything. It's like the people.
Look at like this right now.
The current way of the world.
Mr. Hidden One, we talked about this in the last show, that there's a lot of luxury in this place, and a lot of black people get blinded by the luxury and abundance. They think that because they can go out and they can buy something off of Amazon, or like Mr. Avidia said in the last show, they can just order a pizza, that life isn't that bad. And I would agree. Like, if you look at, compared to most other people around the world, and well, not most, but other people in maybe underdeveloped countries, yeah, or maybe even third world countries, you probably have a little bit better standard of living. But like Mr. Unseen said, how long do you think that's going to last? If when you look at the article that I show with, if your wealth is going to be zero by 2053, and then white people are about to inherit all the wealth.
I'd like to say you should judge your life and your success. If you're here, look at if they snatched everything away from you, like your job, how many months could you survive? I think what the average American can survive, how many months once you lose your job? I think six. Maybe you make. I think six is long. I think most people
I
are
think it
like
was
three
like I think
paychecks,
it was like 3 or 4. Yeah.
3 or 4 paychecks from their job. Where if you're on that, regardless of your race, if it's that tight for you, then you kind of know where you are in society, regardless of what you have. Somebody else has you like that.
But if they're
Person
that
that can.
tight, they're not really worrying about the future, and they're also only worrying about themselves. They aren't probably even trying to have kids if they're that tight. They aren't really worried about the future. Like, I'm gonna try to worry about me. You know, and that's kind of another problem too. Is a lot of people are worried about me, not the rest of the community or even their children. I mean,
What that's
All right.
yeah, some
All right, guys. I don't want to get off into the weeds. I don't want this to be 3 hours long like how we did the
No,
last one.
I wanted to address that real quick, and it explain, and it'll go right back to the point. When you have a proper mission in mind, it takes care of all the stages. The beginning stage where you are now, what you need to be to have kids in the future, and so on. If you properly plan things, or at least you can make a good projection, and that goes for any individual, right? When you look at a group, it will work, but it falls apart when the members of the group don't do what needs to be done. And if you're looking at like Mentacide, people don't know what they should do. They think political is that. And I wanted to say part with the Mentacide as well. He's an extremist to some point. If you think all of anything is a certain way, remember the extremities leads to the dark side of the force. So it's going to be some people that's going to help you here, and some people are going to hurt you of any color. Some people are good for our group. Some people are bad for our group. And all of these players are shifting based on the politics. So you have to understand what's going on and what global politics looks like, and what your local and national politics look like to determine who's on your side at what time. Because the players are always shifting, just like we're shifting in our own group. Well, please continue.
Yeah, the next part of his video, Black Mentacide, that I wanted to look at is a part where he talks about us losing the civil rights battle in the 60s. So we're going to play it here. You got to tell me if you can hear it.
Yeah, see what happened in the 60s. Why we lost the battle in the 60s. Why you never hear nobody talk about the 70s. How many of you people here talk about the 70s? Nobody. Everybody said, boy, in the 60s. And here we are in the 80s. Nobody talk. Because in the 70s, those whites regrouped and white.
Now, he said, here we are in the 80s. Now here we are. We're in the 21st century. And a lot of stuff he's saying is, it's prophetic. It's like nothing's changed, but I'm going to keep playing.
Goes out. You see, here's what happened. White women saw their men in trouble. And like all female animals, anytime the male gets in trouble, the female attacks. That is a law of nature. A law of nature. If you don't believe it, we can prove it in a zoo anytime you want to. Now, what happened, white women came out and captured our women and convinced us that white women were not as racist as white men, and convinced us, or convinced our women, that they would place them above their husbands, their brothers, their lovers, their children, their sons, and we said, then the white gays came out and convinced our gays it was a gay struggle and stole our gays, okay? White students came out.
Now, I just wanted to point out that I think what he's talking about right there is basically what we call today intersectionalism. Any gain that black people fought and died for and struggled for in the 60s was ultimately usurped by whites, white women, gays, immigrants, and any other minority group you can think of. To the point now where white women benefit more from affirmative action. Well, they did at one time. It's gone now, but they benefited from that than anybody else. How did that happen?
And I have the answer for that. Because the mission of the people overall in the 60s wanted to integrate and get in all the little different groups in the major society. They fought and they got beard up and everything in their heads and restaurants and everything to be able to sit in the restaurant with those same people. So they said, come on in. And they went in, and the community dispersed. Like, well, we don't need these old restaurants, whatever. They got better stuff. And we moved in. These are the results. That's what they asked for. That's what they got. They wanted to integrate. They integrated. Now you don't like it. But that's what they asked for. That's what you fought for. You didn't fight for more money for your own stuff. You fought for to get in with the other group and fit into society, dress like, eat like, twirl your spaghetti with the fork like. This is high class. This is low class.
Weave like.
Weave like. Wear hair color, eye color, get fake lens, bleach skin like. If that's what they asked for, that's what they got. Exactly. Don't be mad now. That's what you wanted. You didn't ask. You didn't say, okay, we have this futuristic vision. We want to make more engineers. We don't build this major highway through this neighborhood. We at least give us this state here. Ask nothing. You say, I want to eat in that restaurant. They say, eat in this restaurant. They left them alone. Now you can go eat in any restaurant you want. I want to work at that job. Okay, work at this job. Now you can go work in those jobs. Now you got to compete to get them. They will pay you what you want to pay. But you see in all the neighborhoods. Why don't you want to go down to that gas station down in the hood anymore? Because you're scared to go in there now. There's bars from the window. Right? That's what you asked for, though. You lost the mission of separate but equal and said, I just want to go over there. And that's what the result is.
Wow.
Now we can't go in and be like, oh, it's racist over here. It's just such. You stop asking for your own stuff. So
my mother and my uncles, they grew up not too far from we are right now in McClellanville, South Carolina. And my mother is telling me about two things that were detrimental to folks. First thing was integration. And the fact that, just like previous gentleman was just saying, we wanted to see, we thought the grass was greener on the other side, and it really wasn't. She was telling me like the teachers cared about the well-being of their students, and it was actually a community. When you have no pride and no want to move forward for your own community just because you want material gains, you fail. Because material gains is just that. It's just material. It doesn't last long. It lasts till it's gone. And
wait, guys! Before we go back and forth, because I want to get to the next. I want to finish this video up and get to the next one. But I just wanted to end it off by saying I want to temper it a little bit by saying let's not sugarcoat segregation, because they did actually have inferior schools, inferior everything, because they weren't getting separate but equal. But I get your point, Mr. Unseen. I think the fight should have been for a bona fide separate but equal. Whatever they get, we get.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That was what they started the civil rights movement about. And then the masses let them turn it around to, okay, now we want to integrate instead.
Well, I don't know if that's how it started out or not, or whether they started out with integration. But we're not going to get too much into that. I'm going to play the rest of this video so we can get to the next one.
And grabbed our black students, said it was a student struggle, and wiped out our black students. And all of a sudden, we up to wondering, where's the fight? You know what I mean? It's not a black. So now they're coming up with books such as, book is The Declining Significance of Race. Brother named Wilson wrote that book, who is the chairperson of the Department of Sociology at the University of Chicago. That's very revealing. Because out of that same department came who? Black bourgeoisie. E. Franklin Frazier in 1939. That is the Chicago school where you show. So what Wilson is saying, this brother wrote this book, The Declining Significance of Race. Race is declining in significance, and now class becomes important. Of course, Wilson is the only black in the Department of Sociology at the University of Chicago. That's one reality. The other reality, he has a white wife. Now, race declines every night for him.
But I wanted to end it on that one because I thought that was funny and interesting. But it goes to show you that I think with integration, in that it took our intelligentsia and it molded them in a different way, right? To the point now where they fight for intersectionalism. Like look at the congressional. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
If you're just talking.
Yeah, I think I was muted. Yeah, what I was saying was it took. I thought it was good to end on that point because I think what it shows was integration took our intelligentsia class, right, and indoctrinated them in a certain way, and that way is usually always promote some kind of intersectional type of politics for black people. Everyone else can lead with their ethnicity, other than white people, because they've ruined their name. They ruined their name, so they can't lead with being white. So that's not our fault. But the only people who can't lead with their race is white people and black people, or their ethnicity or their culture. And you see it with the Congressional Black Caucus. You have a Hispanic caucus who deliberately inside their mission statement says, yes, we are for the betterment of Hispanic people and whatnot. I'm paraphrasing with that. But when you look at the Congressional Black Caucus, it's all kind of people of color nonsense. And I'm like, I get why they have the laws where you can't base anything on race and stuff like that, but we got to start leading. If we want to survive in this place, we got to start leading with race again. I think Yvette Carnell, Tone Talks, and even Tariq Nasheed and the FBA to a large extent really laid that out clearly. Like, look, all this tokenism, all this people of color, all this trying to associate ourselves with immigrants or Hispanics or Asians or Indian, that shit ain't working. It's not working, because what happens is they use our energy. We usually fight the most. We usually die the most. We usually suffer the most to gain certain rights. And then they take that energy and they give it to other people. And I think that's what he was kind of explaining. It's like, he went off to this highfalutin college. He's the only black person there. He has his white wife or whatever. So yeah, everything's about class to him now. So if that's what you meant by people going off and doing their own thing, Mr. Unseen, no, I disagree with that. That guy, you want to talk about community justice and what should be done with people like that who get in positions of power and use it against the best interests of black people? No, I don't agree with that. Like, if it's like more like, okay, look, man, what black people got going on, I can't really be around that. I just got to go do my own thing, but I'm not going to overtly try to harm them. All right, I'm fine, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But if you're in a position of power and you know the reality of certain situations and you still deliberately do things in a way that hurts our people, no, I'm sorry, I can't get with that. I can't get with it.
Of course, I agree. And that I had a question when you were saying that, because when you look at, okay, if all of the masses are definitely not going to survive by the year 2050, whatever, what groups would survive based on what they do? If it's intelligentsia, if it's just normal, whatever job, military group, veteran, what groups do you think would actually survive? Which groups could interact with each other? And if you could figure that out, you could probably get a better prediction of what it would look like as far as who would make it.
Yeah.
But certain groups can't deal with some other groups.
Can I answer that question?
Sure.
Me and Mr. Iron were talking last night, and to answer your question about who will survive, the groups that have something to contribute. When you think about it, all of us are intelligent men in this group. But we as black people, what do we contribute to the overall society besides entertainment value, sports, and like Mr. Ira was talking about earlier, fuck your sports.
No,
fuck everything else.
I just want to say that's a good point. That's all I wanted to say. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, sports.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, think about it. we are living in an information age,
Except
like
like
a high computing, high speed internet information age. But what do we contribute to building that? I don't know any. I don't know of any people of color, you might say, or black people who are contributing to quantum computing. I have not heard anything about it. But if you go over to India or China or Japan or anywhere else, they have people working in that field.
Well, I'll say this, Mr. Pimphan. I think that.
oh,
Wait. No, I was first, man. I was first, man. Don't interrupt the host. Don't interrupt the host. I just wanted to say that look, that's a twofold thing. There's a macro issue with that, and that is this country has deliberately put in place policy to undereducate black people, particularly black boys, right? The second thing is, and this is the thing that I think black people can control. It's within our control. So I don't put this on white people. I put this on black people. We don't put a strong value of education in our homes. We just don't do it. And so you're not going to get those engineers. You're not going to get like I know exactly what you're talking about, because when you see some team of people who made some big breakthrough, right? And they show the team and they're all standing together, taking a picture. They're either mostly white. You might see a couple Indies and everything. Every now and then you might see a black person. Every now and then you'll see a black person. So no, I agree. that the world is changing fast. And especially in this country, what you can do physically with your hands just isn't worth as much anymore. It just isn't. And especially if they're going to bring the immigrant horde over here. It's going to drive down wages, and it's going to overflood those markets when it comes to manual labor, which is why we need to be 100% against immigration. Black people need the most immigration obstructionist people on the face of the planet. But no, we got people out here raising black people, raising money for immigrants. It's like, what the hell? What?
wait. If a person has an individual strategy to work with other groups of people that's coming in, or their small group has that strategy for their mission, because they feel that the masses of black people have failed them, then they're going to be 100% for it. So now you understand, if your mission doesn't align with theirs.
No, I'm sorry. I can't let that slide. I can't let it slide. See, if it was some kind of like logical plan created by a certain group of black people, we know this is going to happen. So no, it's morality. It's feel good bullshit. That's why black people are doing it.
No.
That's why they're doing it. I'm telling you right now. I've had
politically, or why the common black person?
I'm saying the common black person who goes up there and sets up a fund to raise money for some goddamn immigrants.
Yeah, raising money is
they're on some
different thing.
They're on some Christian bullshit. These are our brothers. They're in the same position we are. We need to help them.
That bullshit. Like,
I was thinking something different.
No, I'm about to agree with Brian. I'm sorry.
I was thinking like, if people of a certain age want to retire somewhere else in a foreign country, and they unite somehow with some people somewhere else, I'm like, well, where did you come from? You going back? A small group, that's an out for them.
Yeah. You went off. That's something totally different than what we're talking about. We're talking about the political realities that black people face in this country. And I'm going from the context. Look, if you're trying to shame me into voting, and your ass is over here raising money for immigrants, or you're on some feminist bullshit, get the fuck out of my face with the goddamn voting. Because you're not doing anything that's in my best interest.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. You can go to any black community. And why don't we have a black community that's ran by black people? You can go anywhere. You go to any corner store. You have Mr. Habib sitting there following around your kids. Go to any hotel group. You don't have any black-owned anything. Restaurants and clubs. That's the only thing I can think of.
Okay.
things that are not or are not essential
Mr.
to the growth of the society.
Mr. Pimpan, I think Mr. Ivy wants to come in. He's been silent this whole time. Let him say his piece.
I was about to say, look at Remont Road. They gave it away. They got the best church on the road. But they gave it a whole gas station, everything, fictional thing.
All right, guys.
Black
All right, guys. Let Mr. Avidia have it. Say his word.
I couldn't hear him.
Okay, well, it's a number of things that was said, and I agree with a lot of parts of what you were saying. You got to pardon me. This past local election, really took a lot out of me, and I lost a lot of hope for the African American community. When we presented them with a whole bunch of information, they still didn't want to. They still voted for the other candidate who didn't promise anything to the Black community. They just voted for him based on this kumbaya, this tent building type of philosophy, thinking that we need to validate our cause and our movement with other people, and it's really disheartening. The thing that I would have to say is that it's okay. One thing I have to say, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. Until Black people realize, until Black people started understanding and start feeling that Black pain is more important than white discomfort, then we'll start moving on the same accord. The thing of it is that when they started with segregation, this past year or so, I would say a year and a half ago, I worked on a film called Bull Street, and that was shot in Somerton. And Somerton is the place where Briggs versus Elliott, which was the precursor for the Brown versus Board of Education, where desegregation for school, started. And the thing of it is that the reason why the strategy was
before you
integrate the Black kids into the white schools is because they were defunding, and I wouldn't say defunding, they weren't giving any funds or very little funds to Black districts. So what the strategy was, they can't, if we get our kids in their schools, then they have to share the funds with our kids. And then that's when they created the whole AP and honor roll, and then later on they started with private schools and charter schools and stuff like that, certain charter schools. But that was the strategy. But what happened was the mass media took that, thinking that it was the whole, we are the world type of philosophy. With the Kenyan philosophy thing, in that we're all one people, and they spun it. But the original strategy was to get the funds, and they felt that the best way to do it was to integrate, to get our kids into school, because when we had our own schools, that whatever town or city that you were in the southern states, you weren't getting those funds. You were getting hand-me-downs. So that was the strategy, and
it was a bad strategy.
Well, I mean, I think I wouldn't say it wasn't I don't think it was a bad strategy. I think it was well thought out. I just think it was.
In other words, it was bad. It was bad. Come on, let's
go back to something, and Fred missed it. Can I interject a little bit? When we first did this, we laid out some points, and one of the things that you have to understand when you're doing strategy is there are infinite games and there are finite games. And when they did that, they thought it would be a one-stroke move and it would be over. And when they did that move, then the rich people took their kids out to school. They did their move because that type of politics is an ongoing game, and they didn't have a second move for it. And we got what we have. We're still talking about it. It's still devastating. They did that one move. And from then on, okay, your kids in the school, okay, what y'all gonna do? Move out? We just sit there and took it, okay, and they keep leaving, Unless money is there, and after a while, you in a black school, you will have one.
And
Because your kids will be left right there in the poor
and to
old schools
tie
again.
and to tie that back into what Bobby Wright was saying is that we didn't keep our fucking eyes on the ball. He said it. He was like, whatever we fought for in the 60s, white people properly countered in the 70s. And we sat there because we thought we could go into their restaurants and eat what they eat and go into their hotels or whatever and basically give our money to them. We thought we made it. And we didn't properly counter. We didn't properly fight back. And now we are where we are today. On the fucking bottom. Go ahead. Go ahead. Mr.
I don't know what they was fighting for. I mean,
Hold on.
Wait.
did
Let
work?
Mr. Unseen. Let Mr. Pimpan have his say.
It's like we didn't learn from the same. We didn't learn from the same tactics that we initiated. Like the Montgomery bus boycott, we're hurting their pockets. And I have always said, you can mess with a man's family, you can mess with everything else. But as soon as you start messing with their pockets, they're going to pay attention to you, want to kill you. And for what you just said, we start going into their restaurants, their businesses, and everything that has nothing to do with us. But yet we have benefited nothing at all. What's the point of us going out into a society that doesn't want us?
Well, they want your money to an extent.
Yeah.
And
You're exactly
we want
right.
to be wanted, and that's all we want.
Exactly. I agree with what you just said. I think black people, the masses of black people, suffer from low self-esteem. They are, unfortunately, I feel that, from this past election, I don't think a lot of black people are ready to take charge or take control of their circumstances. They're too busy wanting to, they're too distracted, and they're too busy wanting to be included in whatever it is. They want to be liked and want to be loved.
Yeah, they want the pat on the head by white daddy. That's why they'll call a racist fucking scumbag like Jim Crow Joe, Uncle Joe, or that piece of trash Kamala Harris, Auntie Kamala. It's like get out of my face with that crap, man. If you're a black person, you come at me with that crap, I'm just gonna straight up call you a raccoon.
Hold on. Is it time for the coon train?
We try not to use the whole word. I mean, that was just raccoon. All right. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I interrupted you, Mr. Vidya.
I wanted to ask something, though. And it's going to lead to a next part, and I brought it up earlier. We have to look, right? There are certain groups. Certain groups are going to be able to fit in with that group politically. I'm not going to say any political person's name. They feel you got a job in politics, okay, great. You own the TV, okay, great. What percent of black people do you think that is? Who gets jobs from doing that? What percent of black people? Somebody give me a guess. I don't know. It's important though.
Ask the question again. I didn't quite understand it.
Yeah, repeat the question.
What percent of black people are getting paid for trying to influence the rest of black people to participate politically like we are now?
Oh, less than 1% for sure. Less than 1%.
Zero.
Less than 1%. Yeah.
In our this past local election, in our, I'm not sure with the Dorchester and North Charleston and Charleston County, specifically in North Charleston County, there's going to be over, close to $2 billion flooding in our city. This past election was so important. We had a strong mayor weak council, meaning that the mayor would control the budget. Right now, they just elected the former chief of police, and in my opinion, he's a puppet. He's there for the former former mayor. He was having so much. He just settled out of court for sexual harassment. Sexual assaults, using taxpayers' money to pay that, and he knew he couldn't run again, so he did the next best thing. He got a black face to do his, and got him in the office, and now the former mayor, is creating his own construction company because he's going to try to get a piece of that pie
Yeah.
of all that money that's going to be flooding into our city. And the thing of it is that black people are so they don't understand that this is chess, is not checkers, and they don't take the time to try to educate themselves. They vote off of emotion, and they're too busy trying to again want white validation. They don't want to offend the white neighbor. And then when we had a candidate was talking all this what he was going to do specifically for the black community, and try to, because we are the black, unfortunately, we are the majority in our city. And when you're trying to appeal to the majority of the city, meaning that you alone, we didn't need one single white vote to win. We didn't need one, but they all voted for a guy who's just going to perpetuate them to lose, and all that money, and all they do is play keep away. And then the former mayor, he hasn't left office. The new mayor doesn't swear until January. He just had an emergency meeting just yesterday, last night or the night before last, where he just gave his son $1 million.
Jeez.
Now, of course, you got to keep in mind, there's always justification for the reason of that money. The reason why we have this Tanger Mall is because he made sure his son was on the board. Because that's in a crash zone. It's too near to the airport. It was no reason to have that.
Yeah.
The reason why we have Boeing is because he offered them for free, perpetual. They don't have to pay taxes forever.
Taxes, yeah.
So I mean, we until black folks start taking charge and being aware about what's going on around them, I mean, even the governor. That's the reason why you have Clyburn. You got the Democratic Party. You got even a Republican. We had a Republican governor who fundraised for this guy who just won in North Charleston.
Yeah, I'm looking at him now. His name is Police Chief Reggie Burgess.
Yes. So, like I said, I mean, it's just so many backroom dealings going on in this good old boy system, and we're trying to, I'm doing as much as I can with the small group that we have in the city to try to dismantle it and to try to get to awaken black consciousness, but it's hard to awaken them because they're used to sitting in the back seat. Excuse me, not even the back seat, driving Miss Daisy. They're used to doing that.
I wanted to ask though. There's a certain percent of those groups, and I've heard churches having certain rent paid or light bills paid, and aren't different groups. They're not just blind to what's going on. They're having some of their expenses taken care of, correct?
Listen, one of the candidates who was running for mayor, Rhonda Jerome, she was living rent free off of our tax paying money for 22 years. They just finally evicted her. 22 years living rent free. I mean, this is.
And who is that? This is the black person.
Jerome. No, she's a white woman.
No, I'm saying, aren't some of the black people, when we look at the black people in the area, and you say you want to awake them, some groups are already awakened, right? But their church, they go to this church, and different political people.
Yes,
I've heard this. Is this true?
Yeah, some of these churches are in the pockets of the former mayor.
What about other organizations that are black? In the area,
like what organization?
You don't have to name any names. Is it anything more? Or is it just churches that's being manipulated politically with money?
Well, the thing about it is,
what
black organizations?
Hold up. Please go ahead.
What black organizations are you talking about? The most powerful entity in the black community, despite declining memberships, It's
No, I mean in this area, right?
it's still the churches. Yes,
And the point is
the biggest church. As a matter of fact, the biggest church I think in South Carolina is the Mount Moriah.
and the point is they're not asleep. They've chosen their side.
Well, yeah, they choose to be quiet. They try to be Switzerland.
So what can we awaken them to?
But haven't most of these guys
How would they benefit?
How do they benefit?
Right. If they hear what we're saying, they already know what we're going to say. That's why they get mad when we say it to them.
But they're already satisfied right now as is. That's the problem.
So what benefit to them is it?
It doesn't matter what the benefit is. If they're satisfied, why are they going to change?
Then we have to look at everybody's got to have an individual strategy, a small group strategy. Because
I mean, they're already on the mountaintop. They don't need to do anything. They're winning. So why? I mean, why rock the boat?
They're not going to change. They're literally on the winning side right now. So
they don't care. I mean, I won't say they don't care. I don't know about this new elite pastor that they have at Mount Moriah. But like I said, most of them, they the benign neglect. They ignore. They pretend that they're not to see. And while the masses of black people are suffering, they don't care. I wouldn't say they don't. You can't say they don't care, or they'll play like they don't see it. And
so they don't. So they don't care. We got to start being honest about these things. They don't fucking care. They don't care. And that's why I say the black church is dead. It's dead. Whatever the black church was that produced Martin Luther King died when he died. It's over. It's over for the black church. If you're a young black man and you got a nagging mother or father who's telling you to go to church, you tell them what we said. When's the last time the church did anything for black people on a political level akin to Martin Luther King? You can't name it. Mr. Louis Farrakhan has done more for the church. The measly 60,000, however many members of the Nation of Islam has done more for black people since Martin Luther King has died than the black church at large on a macro level.
Why gotta be we said? We said, not I said.
Okay, well I said that's fine. I said it. I'll take the onus for that. Just because you're religious. Believe in fantasy. But anyway, let me stop. But let's get on to the next video. The next video I think is also very important because he talks about our true condition, and I think this is where I think a lot of black people we're blind. We're really blind to this because, like we said, the luxury, the abundance that this place has, it blinds us to our true condition. Because it's different forms of slavery. And we're still in slavery. It's just a different form. But I'm going to let Bobby Wright say it.
That one of the realities is our condition. And this is where blacks sort of get confused. This is where we get confused. Our true condition. One of our true condition is oppression, exploited, women are exploited, da-da-da-da. No. We are what? Enslaved. Enslaved. And the reason we're enslaved is because all of our life-sustaining institutions are controlled by whites. That's slavery. I'll guarantee you, there's nobody in this room can tell me where you turn your water on at, or where you turn your lights off at. I ain't talking about in your house. Because they can turn your lights off without even coming in your house. All of our life-sustaining institutions are controlled by another group. That is slavery. Now, I'm not telling you all of this to depress you. You know what I mean? I'm talking about because you keep hearing this type of stuff, and I believe that we are stronger than other group of people. Well, we have been led to believe that we are super people. We're not super people. We're simply just not utilizing the appropriate methods to address this problem. Most of the time, they get us because we personalize it. We personalize it because we have a white friend. What are you talking about? Whites treat me better than blacks. He ripped on my TV last night. We equate ripping off a TV with ripping off your mother. Now, let me give you an example. I was just talking about it. This might be the first time y'all have heard it, but I was at the Social Workers Convention Friday in Washington. Some of us were here. Some of the students were here, too, from here. And I was pointing out that on the plane, the day before that, a sister had talked to some black students in Chicago, and a student had pointed out that a sister stood up and said, well, you're talking about these black men and black women, what about this? And told me that Kareem Jabbar had divorced his wife and is now living with this 23-year-old white girl, Kareem Jabbar. Y'all know Abdul Kareem Jabbar, the mad militant, you know, kind of. I get Sports Illustrated, this is by Sports Illustrated, 10 pages of Jabbar and this white girl. 10 pages. And this 33-year-old man says that this young girl has taught him more than his parents, more than his teachers, more than his coaches, more than his trainers, all in the space of 2 nights. You know, I mean, what I'm suggesting here, what I'm suggesting here, that if you look at this, here's some, and I'm clearing up because I want to get into the question now. Here's some things we're going to look at that are threatening. Here's the most threatening thing, yes. Harold got into it about black and African. The question becomes, what is a black person? Now, we've been having some deep arguments about this over the country, deep discussions about this around the country, quietly. But one of the problems is, and this is one of the problems, see, back in the 60s, one of my students who was Fred Hampton used to ask me, interrupt my class all the time, because we had these free classes, and called it community university. And he used to say, why are we like we are? Why is history demanding too much of us? That was his famous say. Why are black folks like we are? Is history demanding? And I used to tell him, and I'm going back to that now because I've gotten too far from it. It's very simple. We are in a race war. And we are the only ones who don't know it. Not only we the only ones don't know it, we the only ones don't even know what race we are. Seriously, don't laugh about it. We are in a race war, and we refuse to accept it. All the statistics Jenny gave you, why do blacks just happen to show up? Why do blacks just happen to show up like this I just gave you? It just happened that way. Every time you look up, everywhere you go all over the world, blacks on the bottom and whites on top, it just happens that way. Hell, if it was just happening by saying, look, it defies every known law of probability that exists. The laws of probability state that if it was not color, somewhere in this world, you'll find black folks over whites. Somewhere in this world. Use your own textbook. The law of probability. They tell you science is objective and neutral. Then apply it to the black condition and watch how it go haywire. Goes crazy.
But yeah, I think what he lays out is so important, because if you don't understand what your condition is, what your true reality is, you're gonna do stupid things like what a video says. You're gonna put white discomfort or white guilt over black suffering. You're gonna do things like that. Why? Because you don't think it's that bad. You think, well, we've come so far. We ain't changed no more. Why are we always talking about race for? And he shows you why.
I think an important point to look at now is that race war he's talking about, that was lost. That probably ended about 1990 something. Now we're looking at whether we want to rebuild or flee. That's coming down.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I don't see it. I think it's just escalating. I think it's going to be even more so. I really think it's going to be. I think it's going to escalate and be much bigger. When I was telling my friend, that, Trump still has power and he still has influence, and he was like, yeah, whatever. And then January 6th happened. The more the internet, like I said, what's happening is that this internet and the social media is putting gasoline on a fire, because with these algorithms, which basically echoes everything, whatever you like, it's gonna give you more of that, and everything the things that you upset about, it's gonna give you more of that. I really think it's gonna. I see it because I see the contention. When I go to
can I push back a little bit?
The city meetings and stuff like that, and these little these people are angry, they're upset, and with the especially with the real estate prices, the interest rate is no longer 3%; it's now 8%. Gas is still going up. I just think when things like that starts becoming more than people can handle, I don't see it de-escalating. I
But
see it just escalating, and
I
with
think
immigrants too.
I think though that maybe you somewhat misunderstood what he meant by a race war. I don't think he literally meant like, okay, there's going to be shooting in the streets and stuff like that. I think some of that's going to happen. I think
That's what I'm saying.
I think
I know he's not saying that. I'm saying that.
yeah, but I
know
don't.
he wasn't.
Oh, okay, but I don't think it's going to get to that level. I think that what's going to happen is that black people are going to slowly but surely perish. There's going to be less and less and less and less of us. I don't even think it has to get to that. Because like if you, I mean, look at the title of his lecture. It's Mentacide. You know what I'm saying? So they don't have to be as overt as the Nazis were with Jewish people. Why? They just control the conditions, and that's why I think that's what he meant by race war. They get it. They get that it's a race war. The people who are in power, who are making the decisions, they get that. But like I said, they're able to hide behind the raceless society now.
Yeah, they've always done that.
No, they haven't always. They haven't always done that. They used to lead with race. No. They used to lead with race. It used to be, okay, we're white, you're black, we're superior, you're inferior. We're over here, you're over here. You shop over here, we shop over here. We live nicely. You live in shacks. They used to lead with that. Well, they couldn't lead with that after the '60s, and that's what he's saying. Is that the nature of the war has changed? That's what he's saying, and black people haven't caught on to that.
What I'm saying is that they've always hid. They always hid that. When they brought us here, they didn't consider us human. You understand?
So in other words, in other words, they led with race. They led with race. That's the point I'm trying to make.
No, they led. No, it was this guy. No, they led with the so-called compassion. They believed that they were helping the. I mean, if you like, what's his name?
When you were getting beat on the plantation, that's not compassion.
If you read the writings of John Calhoun, that a lot of these streets are named after. If you read his writings, he says we loved it. They live in a different reality than we do.
You're missing the point. The point is that they set strict standards, white and black. And what I'm saying is that those standards aren't as strict on paper anymore. And what I'm saying is they're hiding behind the idea of a raceless society. They're still using the same maneuvers. They're still leading with their whiteness. They just don't say it. They can't say it overtly. And what black people are having a problem with is, like you said, when someone like John Singletary comes out there and says, "Hey, black people, we're majority in the city, but we're not getting even half of the funds that's being attributed to the city. We got to do something about. Oh, I don't want to offend my whatever." That's the problem. The war is a mental war. It's menticide.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's why. But see, that's why I don't suffer. That's why I don't suffer the whole thing with January 6th and the fear mongering. Like, man, that's white peopling.
I have to ask a question when you say, because if you say they don't want to hurt their white friends' feelings, what does that have to do with what they do in private in the voting booth? If nobody would know if they voted in a particular way until after they voted. Right.
That's not the.
Why do they vote a certain way versus another?
He just said it. They want a pat on the head. They want a pat on the head.
Did they get a pat on the head?
Yeah. When Joe Biden, when Jim Crow Joe gets up, and then after he wins the election, and then he thanks black people, that's enough for most black people. That's enough for us.
Then they won.
There you go.
Well, here's the thing about it, right? The problem with black folks since the 60s has always been selective outrage. We were ambulance chasing it, as I like to call it. There's something that will happen. We'll march up and down the streets, scream kumbaya, throw some bit of solidarity with each other for the time being. And within that year's time, it'll be forgotten.
Hmm.
If we actually had a real grasp on the problems that are facing our community, not just the select few groups like us, or, and I hate to say it, only group I can think of in Charleston is us. If we
Well,
had a real
what,
grasp on what's going on with us,
what, there,
it'll be outrage every day. We'll be fighting every day. We'll actually have want more political power.
Well,
But
that's what this show is about: is to try to educate black men in the local area about the realities of our situation. We got to we got to cast off delusion and stop trying to make everybody feel good, or be afraid to lead with black, and get people to understand, hey, look, man, if we don't make some major course corrections, it's done for us here.
let me um, jump off of what you just said. Mount what's that church? The church where Dylan Roof went in and killed those
Emmanuel?
folks. What's the name of that church downtown?
Mother Emmanuel?
Mother Emmanuel. Thank you. The thing about it is that has become a tourist attraction. It's not any type of, hey, we need to sit there and this will never happen again.
But bring
Honestly, just wait until the next tragedy happens. And this has happened over and over again in Charleston. We'll sit there and, oh my God, look at what they're doing to us. And then, okay, on to the next thing. Or I got to get back to my regularly scheduled programming. And it's exactly that, programming.
Turn on the electric slide.
Exactly. Exactly.
Listen,
When
I would,
y'all remember the Charleston riots?
Mr. Pimpan, you made a couple points. Go ahead, let Mr. Vidya speak.
no, I think he made some great points. The thing, yeah, it just became a tourist strike. Everything that happened at Mother Emanuel, which was crazy. Um, I think, and I'm not the only one. We feel that it was a hit. You know, because he was just going after. Um, oh my God, I can't think of his name right now.
Or the senator,
Oh,
state senator?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Pickney. Is it
Yeah.
Pickney? Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, because Dylan Ruth, he had people who, quote unquote, um, pretend. I can't say that they pretended, but he had a lot of people saying that there were ministers going out there to talk to him when he was locked up and stuff like that. Well, I can't say too much, but it's a lot of stuff going on. And what was going on in Mother Emanuel, I can go on, and that would be a whole nother podcast. But like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on in Charleston and North Charleston, and what we're trying to do is dismantle the good old boy system. The first time, well, I just want to say this one piece on Biden. The first time I ever heard of Biden, when my brother graduated from the Citadel, Strom Thurmond came and gave the keynote speech. Okay, and when he was doing that, I was booing. All right, and people were looking at me, and I didn't care. But when Strom Thurmond passed away, um, the first time I ever heard of Biden is when he passed away. Biden was given a eulogy. One of the people, politicians that came down and gave him, and I said, "Wow, that was my first time ever learning of who Biden was." And I knew right then. I was like, "Dude, if you're friends with that asshole, yeah, you definitely not get my vote." You know. But I understood that when Obama was running, it made sense because I said, "Oh, okay." He wanted, instead of getting Hillary to be his VP, he was going to get Biden because he's that good old boy. So even though he's up in Maine, it still had the same mentality. So that more people would be more inclined to vote for him if he had Joe Biden as his VP than having Hillary. So I understood strategy wise, it made more sense. But the thing of it is that black folks are not aware of history and not aware of what's going on. They have no civic knowledge of what's going on in their local city or national.
Well,
And that's the reason why we failed.
I'll say this though about look if there was a strategic move made, right, to get Biden as VP so that Obama would have a better chance of winning. If black people were actually extracting resources from that racist motherfucker, I wouldn't care. But what do we get? He says thank you for getting him elected. He opens the floodgates to immigrants. He sends billions of dollars to Nazis in Ukraine. He sends billions of dollars to apartheid Israel. You know what I'm saying? All these things that doesn't work in our benefit. Right? And then when we ask him about reparations, that motherfucker has a nerve to come out of his mouth talking about, well, what about the Native Americans? Well, you need to team up with the Hispanics. So I don't want to hear from no black. You better not come up to me and talking about, why I should vote. If that's how you're moving politically, get out of my face. Get out of my face. Don't sit there and indoctrinate boys on this bullshit. Let them figure out how they're going to lead their lives void of that crap. Because it does not work for them. Nothing has come out of the Democratic Party for black boys and black men at large. And the one thing that bastard Obama did, you had a bunch of goddamn black feminists sue him. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear from anybody, especially on the national stage, when it comes to voting for Democrats. The way these motherfuckers have been treating us for the last 70 years. Not one thing. I'm sorry. I don't care about January 6th. I will, with great pride, I will go in and make sure Trump wins this next election. If what's his name? If Cornel West doesn't make it. Right now I'm voting for Cornel West if he makes it that far. But if Cornel West does not win, or if he doesn't make it to the debate stage and he's not put on the ballot, then I'm either not voting or I'm voting for Trump. But guys, this we've been going a little over an hour. We're going to get our last points. I'm gonna let everyone say their last piece. We're going to start with you, Mr. Hidden One, since you haven't said much. Go ahead. Mr. Hidden One, are you still there? Okay, we're going to go to you, Mr. Unseen. Go ahead.
I like to wrap it up with you have your individual goals and you have your group goals, and if the individual goals are best for the individual and they work out for them, it's one thing. If a group wants the individual to participate, they have to be able to look out for that person in the mission. Understand what people's missions are, even though they might tell you. People say you need to participate in a certain strategy. What's that strategy for? You have to ask them that. And if it's for them, well, it's going to end up, XYZ. It's good for, black people, but it's going to come through the, the hands of a political party. You know how it's going to be filtered. It's still not going to, work out in your best interest. Sometimes it's better to save your time and resources. Know your mission, and then know your strategy, and then know your tactics, and then you'll be able to compare it to what people are asking you to do, and you'll know what to do. If you have it together yourself, you should already be in full swing of whatever you're doing by the time somebody comes to ask you to vote or anything like that. And that's all I have to say.
All right, Mr. Pimpan, please. Mr. Pimpan?
At the end of the,
okay.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
At the end of the day, we need to get out of the practice of selective outrage and being entertained and sensationalized. We just need to have, I'm not saying continuous outrage, but continued vigilance and activity. And that's the biggest thing. We're complacent in what's happening to us. We've been so complacent so long, it's just become the norm, and we need to get out of that.
All right, Mr. Vidya, any last words?
I'm just gonna say ditto. Yeah, I think everyone who spoke before prior to me, I agree.
Yeah, and I'll just end with like guys, I think we've laid it out in the last two shows. The genocide is real. It's genocide has taken over a different form. Like Dr. Bobby Wright, he calls it a Mentacide. And I think we got to be aware of it, especially black men, because there's nothing out. Black men and black boys, there's nothing out here for you. SYSBM, save yourself, black man. No one's coming for you. No one has your back. Not even a lot of other black men, unfortunately. Now, there's some black men out there that are hardcore. But save yourself. If you can work with other people who have similar interests and similar values, do it. But if these people are going in total opposite direction of what's in your best interest, you need to let them go. And we're going to end it there. We do this show every 2 weeks. What's our next show going to be about, Mr. Unseen? Didn't you say you wanted to talk about A-Trap Brown? Because there's a few other things I wanted to talk about. I have a whole list of things that we need to discuss.
Next week, what I wanted to do is we're gonna break down and we started a little bit this week. It's gonna break down into units. If you have a mission, how many people would it take, and how do the demographics of black people break up in? And then we're gonna throw some strategies that normal black people think that we need to do, reparations, vote in a certain way or whatever, and say, where's the numbers? And do the research. And be like, okay, well, here's what you need. Yeah. You know, you should be able to predict, or at least get a model of what it's going to look like for us. And I like to put a year on there. The real year I'm looking at is the year 2030.
Yeah, one of the topics we have is called Deadline 2030.
Deadline 2030. So we're going to look at the political education from H. Rep. Brown. And we talked about it a little bit this week on how you should be thinking about, being political in any manner. Sometimes certain jobs you have is just being political. Being political might be letting not letting your children hear certain things and anticipate certain things, so they're not ruined by a certain age. That's all I have to say. I look forward to next week. But remember, your strategy is your mission.
It's going to be every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks we're gonna film one and release. But
Sorry, go ahead. I'm done.
This will be the last thing I'm going to say. I just wanted to give a brief overview of some of the other topics that we're going to be discussing the next few months. One is our ADOS and FEA being genocided, and we already did that. How can black people learn from the ninja? So we might be covering a book called The Basen Shukai on that. And we'll also tie it in with The Art of War and some other military treatises. Black men failed with Colin Kaepernick in the NFL. The real reason behind the FBA and ADOS feuding. What is the best form of reparations? And the reason why I wanted to talk about that one is because at one time I thought cash reparations was the best form, but I've since changed my mind on that, and I wanted to talk about why. A conversation with the blue pill man. I figured that one would be interesting, Miss Vidya. That'll be our show where we focus on black women. The Gray Faulkner Initiative is a plan written by a police officer. He also owns his own security firm, and I wanted to go over that plan because it's essentially a plan to push more young black men into the police departments and into the military. He calls it the keys to the kingdom, and he thinks it's a real missed opportunity for black people to get a leg up in this society. If we created a culture where we pushed most black boys into either the police force or the military, we would get way better outcomes than what we have right now. And there's some other things that go along with that when it comes to militarizing our community. Let's see, interview with a normal black man. I figure maybe a good idea would be we find someone either randomly on the street, or we pick somebody from our family or maybe one of our friends who we would consider kind of normal, kind of average. They don't really look into politics that deeply, and we just have a discussion with them. You know what I'm saying? The legal case for reparations was kind of covered in this one. The rules of engagement for Black people. I think this is going to be where Mr. Unseen sort of really shines, because we need to start setting some ground rules, some standards for Black men and boys in general. I wanted to do one video about I call him the first passport bro. His name is the Black Sparrow of Death. I think his name or his real name was Eugene Bullard, and the guy just had an amazing life, and he doesn't really get discussed that much. But those were some of the ideas. If any of you guys have ideas for topics, please send them to me, and I'll put it on the list, and we'll try and make it happen. But that's it for me. If anybody else has one last thing to say, I'll let you say it before we sign off. All right, we'll call it quits there. Thanks everyone for chiming in and showing up. Oh, another thing, Mr. Avia, I wanted to do was one of the things I notice about politics is that, particularly Black people, and even myself, I'm included with this, is that we get started too late. Trying to figure out who's who and when's when and what is what. So one of the things I wanted to do is, I don't know if John Singletary wants to run again in another 4 years, or however, is it every 2 years, every 4 years they come up for mayor? I can't remember.
Yes, 4 years.
Every 4 years, so it's like the president. Okay. So we need to start now. So I wanted to do a show specifically outlining his 70-page plan for Black people. Maybe talk about some marketing ideas. And even if possible, I don't know, because we're very raw on this show, so I don't know how he would feel about coming on the show, because we don't hold back, and I don't want to ruin his chance of winning. But if we could at least discuss, what it is he's proposing and get it out there to the masses or whatever, we can do a show based on that, a John Singletary show basically, and why it's important. In fact, we can maybe do a segment. So every show we do a segment on John Singletary, his plan, what he wants to do, and then I'll cut that segment out, right? And then that'll be a promotional material. We'll keep it clean or whatnot. We'll just talk. We'll keep it real tight. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't spoken to John since the election yet. Just letting him, But I don't know if he's going to run again. But yeah, when I do speak to him, I'll definitely pass it along to him.
All right, cool.
See if he's interested.
I wanted to add one topic, and we can throw it in there, and you can title it "Is Voting the New Praying?"
I like that one. Hold on, let me write that one. Let me write that shit down. Voting the new praying. Hold on, wait. Damn, I lost the shit. Yeah, is voting the new praying? That's a good one. Yeah, is voting the new praying? All right, so we'll end it there, guys. Again, thank you for coming up, and I will see you guys next week or 2 weeks from now.